as we gather ourselves and dissect a Monday night game that will go down in the ages. And I tell you, there is no heroes in this standpoint, from the broadcast booth, from obviously the replacement officials, to the Seattle Seahawks, who did not win the Super Bowl last night, if you didn't realize. And the only heroes really in a lot of ways were the Packers in the postgame, who handled themselves superbly in what was an utter disgrace at Q West, or whatever that stadium is now called in Seattle. Let me start with the theme that we've been on here for months. That must be continued. And if you can move a chair over here so I can sit down properly with handles, it'd be great. Number one, we have been on this forever, and the theme that we've had is the idea that the officials, the replacement officials, I don't want to call them scabs, as some people did today. People take jobs in all walks of life because they got families to feed. If these regular officials wanted to, go out on, strike or lockout or not negotiate a contract, I can't blame the guys who need to feed families. So from that standpoint, I'm not going there as far as scabs are concerned. I feel bad for them in some ways, but they are what they are. They are replacements. There are second-class replacements at that. These guys did not do LSU. They did not do LSU Alabama last year. They did. They did Franklin and Marshall and Lafayette, and that is an abomination. And we've discussed this from day one. They got away with it in week one. It got a little worse in week two. It was a disaster in week three. The games are chaotic. They're choppy. You don't have confidence as a football fan that these games are handled properly. There's a lot of things not to like. And we all know how bad some of these calls have been recently. There are a lot of things not to like. But until last night, as we have discussed ad infinitum, we have not had the wrong team win. Despite all their disasters, I don't care what Belichick says. That field goal was good. I don't care what the Ravens say. They had plenty of chances to beat the Eagles. The Vikings beat the Niners. The Arizona beat Seattle when they screwed up the timeouts and the challenges in those two games. So for the most part, and I can't think of one where I'd say, hey, that team got screwed until last night. Now, last night, they cost the team a win. And that is unforgivable. But it's not their fault. The fact that these pompous, wealthy, give a crap about you owners, all of them, and the bag man that has become Roger Goodell, because, folks, he's a bag man. Okay? This is not personal conduct. He's a bag man. He's doing their bidding. The fact that these owners, who, among other things, could care less about the retirees with concussions, could care less about CBS with the NFC package, which they had since the mid-'50s when they bailed out on them to run the Fox in 93, could care less about putting you in football games in the playoffs at midnight to freeze your ass off, could care less about disrupting the schedules of millions of fans who have to go Thanksgiving night to New York to watch Giants Dallas at 9 o'clock on Thanksgiving night, Sunday night of Thanksgiving weekend at 9 o'clock, who could care less about charging you an arm and a leg for PSLs just for the right to buy overpriced, absurd prices with season tickets, who could care less about charging you full dollar for preseason football, could care less, could give a crap about the networks, could give a crap about anybody. This is Kraft. This is Jerry Jones. This is Arthur Blank, who keeps cities for hostage to build them new facilities, a la the Vikings, could care less about the paying consumer and you and I, the fan, could care less, would spit on us, every single one of them, all these owners. And Goodell, their bag man with this dispute. And the fact that the NFL, that, as I've said to you 100,000 times in the last 3 weeks, said it to you beginning in August, when Mike Pereira was on first day of the preseason schedule on August 8th saying, Chris, this is going to be a disaster. And it's turned out to be. The NFL that burns money, $9 billion of revenues a year, burns it. Okay? burns it, and screws us, you, and I, the fan, every way they can. Parking, beer money, PSLs, preseason, exorbitant prices, sit in stadiums for hours, Super Bowls in the Northeast where we freeze our rear ends off for 3 hours waiting for a game to start in Super Bowl 2014. Now, the NFL is going to pay for what they did to America last night. And they can put out all the Greg Aiellos of the world, and they're never going to come out with me again, so you're going to have to live with this. Okay, this is the price we're going to pay now. You're not going to get these owners. John Mara's not coming on. Goodell refused to come on this year. He's not coming on. So we're not going to give you that information because we're burying him here, and they have ears all over the place. Goodness gracious, if you wear the wrong cleats a la Peyton Manning to honor Johnny Unitas, you get fined. The NFL now has urinated on the product. And the fact that the NFL can't figure out a way, talk all you want about these regular referees and about how they were bad too, and about they making $149,000 for, basically part-time work, and the fact that they're heavy and they're old and they're not full-time. Say what you want. The fact that the NFL has played, is still playing the sort of game that they are now continuing to play with these officials as far as the pension fund and the 401k fund and all this garbage over what is amount to $100,000 a team. Remember, these are the same owners who keep cities in hostage to build new facilities. New York, Washington, New England, going to Connecticut and Hartford. I can write books about that. Minnesota, San Diego, Al Davis. This goes on and on and on. Okay, Arthur Blank now screaming about leaving. The Wolves in Minnesota. These same owners are making a big stink about $100,000 per team because, God forbid, we don't want to give our full-time employees full benefits. You must be kidding me. You must. And then the NFL today, when they should be at the knees of the paying public for giving this disgrace to us football fans who stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning, who log to stadiums and deal with traffic and the prices and 3 o'clock in the morning finishes and all the garbage that they make us put up with. The NFL, who today their bagman should be on his knees begging forgiveness. Today, the NFL produces a statement which says, among other things, the play last night was essentially ruled correctly. Garbage. Garbage. The NFL should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. And say what you want about Stern, say what you want about Bettman, say what you want about that old man Selig who you guys love to kill. You think Selig would allow replacement umpires to officiate his World Series? You think for 1 second? You think for 1 second Bud would bring in some guy who does high school baseball to do Game 7 of the World Series? You think for 1 second? But who cares? You think for 1 second Bud would do that? You think Stern would bring in some guy who does AAU basketball to ref Game 7 of the finals between Durant and LeBron? You think for 1 second? You think for 1 second? Do you think for 1 second Bettman would go bring in Colin Schmeling, who does midget Boomer Esiason and Cantiago Park, Hicksville, Long Island hockey to officiate, and not knock on him, but true, to officiate Game 7 of his Cup final? For 1 second, do you think that? Yet Goodell, the bagman, Goodell has decided with his owners, and he listens to what they say, they pay his paychecks, he's got no power here. Goodell decides to play hardball with his officials. The game last night was a absolute, complete abomination. And that was before the last play of the game. Before the last play of the game. And I'm telling you right now, I wish we could do something about it. I wish we would be smart enough to, you know what? We're not watching football Thursday night with your stupid NFL network. You know what? We're gonna not put our eyeballs to your stupid sets. That's what we really should do. You, me, and everybody else. But we won't have the guts to. And when Thursday night 8:20 comes around, football is football. We deal with it because that's what fans do. And we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna do that, and you're gonna do that. and next Sunday and next Monday night, because the NFL knows that in its fan base, we are a bunch of saps, that we will put up with PSLs, that we will put up with preseason prices, that we will put up with games in the playoffs starting at 9 o'clock at night when it's 5 degrees outside, and they could have played at 1 o'clock when it was 25 degrees outside. When, in fact, we're going to put up with them putting a Super Bowl in the Northeast because they want to placate Woody Johnson for building a stadium at the Meadowlands. By the way, a stadium that the new state of New Jersey, which is broke, picked up $250 million in their debt because they couldn't pay for the first one. Because they couldn't pay for the first one. But we don't have the guts to do that, which is unfortunate. Because we're saps. And so part of the blame has to be on you, me, and everybody else. And I know, and I had money on the game too. And I know $150 million was screwed up with that game last night with that call. $150 million. That's our fault. We should never gamble on something as stupid as this, but we want to. Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. And finally, I will give Tirico a pass. He got the rule wrong. The play in the end zone is reviewable on touchdowns. He said it wasn't. Tirico, for the most part, handled himself properly. We'll give Tirico a pass. It's a bad error. He should know the rules left and right. He's the play-by-play guy. He go to seminars. He got to know the rules. We'll give him a break on that. And I think Gruden's funny. I think Gruden can be amusing. But the fact that Gruden sat there last night and basically said, among other things, no, he said the wrong team won, which he had to say that. But, and gave McCarthy and felt bad for his buddy McCarthy. But the fact that Gruden last night was on camera for hours after the game, the fact that Gruden last night sat there and said, among other things, well, check that. The fact that he sat there last night and did not say anything about the NFL officiating and did not kill the NFL for putting this garbage on the field was a disgrace. Because he lost all respect in my eyes, and I no longer can trust him as a broadcaster. Because Gruden, who's too soft as it is, who's afraid to upset the apple cart, Gruden last night, who's a Super Bowl winning coach, who's been in football forever, Gruden last night's got to sit there in front of America and tell people this has gone far enough. The NFL and the owners and the commissioner are completely wrong, and this is a disgrace. And Gruden did not say that. I could bring up Eric Davis on the NFL Network, who tried to be different this morning on NFL AM over there on 212 by trying to tell us that somehow Golden Tate, had simultaneous possession of the football. But he was such an idiot about it, I can't even go there. So we leave him alone. He's what he is. He's not a big-time broadcaster. Never will, never has been. We leave him alone. Finally, I have to get on the Seattle Seahawks to run up and down Russell Warren, who did nothing in the game, who stunk. Russell Wilson, who stunk in this game. Absolutely spit up he made one pass play. He did nothing in the football game. For him to point to the sky and act like God is smiling and go Hawks every time he saw a TV camera and a microphone. For Pete Carroll to run up and down like he wouldn't know what hit him, and what a great win for our franchise and all that. For Tate, when he is asked about the offensive pass interference, who said, what pass interference? I mean, there is something, when I win a tennis match because somebody screwed up, because maybe I screwed up a lines call or I got a break of all time, it doesn't feel good. And I don't go up there puffing up my chest. When I win a golf tournament, same thing. When you do in your little squash, your little paddle tennis, your little 5-on-5 basketball at the Y in the wintertime, and you win when you really shouldn't win, it doesn't feel right. And Seattle last night did not acknowledge for hours in the postgame that this is a disgrace that we won this game this way, and this game was tainted, and never once did anybody involved with Seattle, the quarterback, the head coach, the wide receivers, the defense, which did nothing in the second half, running all over the place. Never, after the game, they're running all over the place, did they acknowledge, you know what, geez, we got a break here. This is a joke. We shouldn't have won the game. Never once did anybody in Seattle acknowledge that. I didn't say they had to give the game back. But you know what? Here's what you do if you're Seattle after the game. You know what? We got a break. See you Sunday in St. Louis. Enough. They acted like they won the Super Bowl. Garbage. Absolute garbage. And I will conclude this first segment with this last point. You know who acted the best last night? The Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers. No Jack Del Rio garbage. No John Fox garbage. No Bill Belichick garbage. No John Harbaugh garbage. McCarthy, the worst loss he ever took. I got respect for him. Super job. Sat there after the game. No moaning and groaning. You know, he didn't like the call, obviously. No moaning and groaning. The players in the locker room, Jennings, everybody you name, no moaning and groaning. They came out and let him kick the extra point. And why the NFL has to do that? Gamblers. That's why the NFL has to do that. They didn't have to kick the extra point. The NFL does that for the point spread. If you think not, you don't know what you're talking about. Point spread. Point spread. That's why they make them kick the extra points in regulation. Point spread. Vegas. Vegas. But Aaron Rodgers, as good as he can be. The Green Bay Packers were the only one. They lost the game. They're the only ones who stood tall on what was, in my opinion, I've been watching NFL football for 48 years, 1966, 1967, with a memory like an elephant, with no agenda, no favoritism, nothing. I could care less who doesn't like me. I'm not interested. I don't work for ESPN. I don't work for CBS or Fox or NBC. I don't work for the league. I got friends in the league. I don't work for them. What they did last night in my 48 years of watching football every Sunday, 7 hours of my life, Monday nights, Thursday nights, God knows what other night, was an absolute disgrace. And if we had any guts as fans, we'd say we'd do something back. We'd be blowing off a game this weekend. Take your kids out. Take your kids out.